Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to What's Cooking in Bert's Kitchen. Today, I'm going to make a recipe that was requested by a friend of mine, and it's garlic shrimp Alfredo. However, I'm also going to do some chicken because my kids won't eat shrimp. If I coated them in chocolate, they wouldn't eat shrimp. So I'll make the Alfredo sauce separate, and then we'll work from there. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is get our Alfredo sauce going. We're going to do several things all at once. Now I'm going to serve this over fettuccine. We're also going to get a pot of water on boiling for that and get that all cooked in the same amount of time. So the first thing we're going to need to start our Alfredo sauce is we're going to need an entire stick of butter, get it into a saucepan on the stove, and get it melting over low heat. Now my cooker goes up to 10. I'm setting this at about 3.5, 4, and let that melt nice and slow. Meanwhile, I'm going to use this pot and get some salted water, heavily salted, to start boiling our pasta. Now always start with cold water because hot water will bring things up out of your pipe that you don't want, and it's going to taste horrible. This is a 5-quart stock pot. You want to fill it about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way, no more than that. And then you want to heavily salt it. That there is about 4 tablespoons of salt. You want it really salty because it's the only chance you're going to get to flavor your pasta. Get that on high, get it boiling. Now the next step we want to do is we want to get this pan, this frying pan, cooking on relatively high heat, 7 or 8. Add a couple tablespoons of butter. Get that in there, get it melting. Now while that's melting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare my my chicken that I'm going to cook in here. First thing I'm going to need, I'm only doing 2 chicken breasts, I'm only going to need 1 egg. Pop it into the bowl. Add just a small splash of milk. Alright, so we whip up our eggs and our milk. I'm sure you've all done this before, but we'll go through it. The other thing we're going to need is some breadcrumbs. Now these are already seasoned, but if you're just using regular breadcrumbs, add some Italian seasoning or at least some salt and pepper. And pour about a cup in there. Now the other thing we want to do, once our butter is melted and it starts kind of sizzling up a little bit, we want to add some garlic. As much or as little as you like. Now I'm making garlic shrimp Alfredo. I'm adding quite a bit of garlic in here. After all, garlic is one of the stars of the dish. Sauce that around a little bit. Now you don't want your garlic to burn, so I've turned the heat down just a little. Here I have some chicken breasts. They're sliced rather thin, but I still want to pound them out before I coat them, just to make sure that they cook all the way through. Break up a little bit of the fibers in there. You may have one of these around your house. You'll see that it's kind of got some violent looking points on the end of it. Don't use those. You're just going to tear up the chicken. That's meant for tougher meats like beef, thicker cuts of beef. Now you just want to gently pound it out so it thins out a little bit. You don't want to break it. And if you gently get it from both sides, it'll be nice and thin and cooked nice and even. Soak it in our milk mixture with one hand. Then put it into our breadcrumbs and deal with that with your dry hand. So we get a nice little, you won't wind up with those thick mittens of breadcrumb all over your hand. Kind of pat them on there. So we have a nice, well-coated piece of chicken. Now we're going to put this into our... Now we're going to place these into our frying pan and let them start to sizzle away until they fry a nice deep golden brown. In the meantime, our milk for our Alfredo sauce has melted completely down. Once again, we're going to here add a bit of garlic. I'm using the stuff that everybody has in their fridge. Chopped garlic. If you have, whole cloves of garlic, chop a couple cloves up. Okay, so our chicken has gotten nice and golden brown on one side, and we flipped it over. We're going to let it cook for another couple of minutes. Over here, our garlic is settled in. Now, what we're going to need is 16 ounces, 1 pint, this container. You've seen it in the store a million times. Of heavy whipping cream. Now, as I said before, the reason we want to keep our heat low so our butter doesn't burn, also because cream will scorch on the bottom, as will any milk product, if you cook it on too high a heat. Now, we want to stir that in, get it well mixed, and bring it to a simmer. But don't up your heat. If it's not simmering fast enough, be patient. Okay, our chicken is done. We want to get it out of there. And we want to set it on a plate, some paper towels, let any of that grease drain off. Now while all this is happening, our pasta water has come to a boil. So what I'm going to do, add a pound of fettuccine. Now you'll notice I didn't put any oil in the water. You don't need to. All it really does is it separates from the water, sits on top, and then when you do get oil on your pasta, the sauce won't stick. The trick is to stir it consistently and not cook it for more than 8 minutes. So I set a timer for 8 minutes on the stove, and I keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, I'm also watching my Alfredo mixture over here. Stirring it. Now, if your heat is too high and it starts to steam a little too quickly and you think it may be scorched on the bottom, be careful stirring it. Don't run your spoon or whisk or whatever across the bottom. You'll scrape up all that burned garbage and it'll ruin your sauce. Okay, so while all this is happening, we also want to cook our shrimp. Now here I happen to have a package of frozen shrimp. They were on sale. Like everybody, we're on a budget. These happen to have the tail on. So, what I need to do is get them thawed enough to take the tail off. And the easy way to do that is put them in a bowl and run cold water over them. Do not run hot water over them. Yes, they'll thaw faster. They'll also start to cook. And again, that hot water is going to bring up things out of your pipes that you don't want in your fish. Still stirring our pasta. Get down deep to the bottom, make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom, because that's where the heat is located and the best chance for your pasta to start sticking there. Okay, so our shrimp, literally, it took a minute of just running water over it to thaw them out enough where I can get the tails off. So basically, you're going to need another bowl. But all you want to do is just pull the tail off. Throw that in the food processor, or the garbage disposal, or the trash. Very simple. Comes right off. Okay, so our pasta is done. Give it one last good stir. Turn that heat off and let's get it into a colander. Need a couple of hot mitts. Be very careful. And just let that sit and drain. Right there in the sink. Meanwhile, we'll finish up with these shrimp. Okay, so we want to get our shrimp right in there to our butter and oil mixture with the garlic in it. And saute it around. This is only going to take about 3 or 4 minutes at the most to really cook, and then you want to get it off the heat. You'll know your shrimp are cooked when they turn nice and bright pink all the way through. And you don't want to cook them any more than that, because they'll start to get rubbery like a pencil eraser, and nobody wants to chew on a pencil eraser. Meanwhile, our Alfredo sauce, or what we have right now, is basically a bechamel sauce. It's just a white cream sauce with butter. And in this case garlic, but it's a bechamel sauce. What makes it an Alfredo sauce is Parmesan cheese. Now, you can use the stuff that comes in the green can, but really for the flavor that I want, and this is for my wife whom I adore, so I'm going to give her the best I can, I bought a small block of this. Now I only need about half a cup of this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a large bowl. and grate it on the smallest grater that I have. That way it doesn't go everywhere. Just trying to grate it over the pot's just going to be a pain in the rear end. And it's going to take a minute. It's a bit of a workout. But like I said, if this is for somebody special, it's worth all the time in the world. And all, if not more, of the effort. And there I have about half a cup. So I'll wrap the cheese back up, put it away in the fridge. It'll hold forever. We want to get that in there. And swirl it around nice and gentle. And you want to let that go for about 4 or 5 minutes. Now what I like to add to this is a little bit of white pepper. White pepper. Not black pepper, because it'll just show up like specks and somebody will think you burned it. Just a little small handful like that, half a teaspoon. Throw it in there. It'll give it a little bit of bite. And it's going to take a little time, but make sure you get it good and well mixed in there. Our shrimp are still a little opaque. Flip them over, turn them around. I tend to just do it with the pan, but you know, if you need to, get a spoon or a set of tongs, whatever it takes. Now I'm setting my kitchen timer for 5 minutes, because at that point we're going to add the last little ingredient to this, just to make it special. Now our shrimp is fully cooked. You can see how they're pink all the way through. So we want to get those off the heat and let them just sit till we're ready for them. Now all the time you want to keep stirring your sauce, and I know it's simmering. After it's been simmering for a couple of minutes here with the cheese in it, it's a good time to taste it. And that tastes wonderful. It doesn't need any extra pepper, doesn't need any extra salt. Okay, so our sauce has been simmered for a total of 5 minutes after we added the Parmesan. Now what I'm going to do to thicken it up is add a little mozzarella cheese. It's not quite as thick as I like, so this saves me the trouble of trying to get flour in there and thicken it up, and it tastes kind of mealy and cereal-y. We don't want that. So I'm going to add just a little bit, stir that, let it, make sure it melts fully. And incorporates fully, become liquid. It's going to take a minute or so. You'll see that on the end of your spoon or whisk or whatever you're using to stir this with. And you'll notice that it's starting to come off the whisk. There's still a bit of it on there, but we want to cook it till it's all fully melted, and I'm thinking this is perfectly thick enough. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's good and thick enough. Coats the spoon nicely. And it tastes fantastic. So let's get that off the heat. So let's plate up a little dinner. Get a little bit of our pasta here. A few pieces of shrimp. And our beautiful sauce. Put as much or as little as you like. If it still doesn't look pretty enough to you, I will sprinkle a little parsley on there. And there we have a beautiful dish of garlic shrimp Alfredo. So let's see how it tastes. Get a bit of shrimp in there, a little bit of pasta. My word, that is good. Well, thank you for spending some time with us today. And please, come back next time and find out what's cooking in Bert's kitchen.